Hey guys, it's Corey again. Today I'm taking a look at automation costs, kind of comparing GHL with Make, Zapier, 750,000 execution annual plan, and the 2 million execution annual plan, and just taking a look to see what the costs are to put 40,000 leads from here into the voice AI caller. So I've got this automation system that I built, but this is really, it's that pathway right there, that API route that we're talking about. Running 40,000 leads through that, and then actually we're going to get a response back here. So when I look at it, it looks like we're going to put 40,000 in here, but way fewer come back. It's a lot smaller number. The calls don't get answered, or they, whatever. But so we're modeling it with 40,000 going this way and 12,000 coming back. And then from there, I had to process some outcomes. So to do that, it goes through a piece of ChatGPT, and so that's only 2,400. So anyway, I'm not going to try to show you and make sense of this whole spreadsheet. I almost feel like hiding some of this just because it's messy and it's just my thoughts. But let me jump here to the main thing. So Go High Level only charges for premium activities. There's a custom webhook. There is a GPT custom call, and then routing things to Google Sheets. So the way that this is done here is there's a custom webhook going out. Then there's a custom webhook required for the return, because this thing won't catch a webhook without it being custom. So those two have a cost to them, and then so does processing the outcomes and then sticking those things, the outputs, into a Google Sheet right here. So those are the premium activities. I'm going to put those down here. So the custom outcomes and the automate and the spreadsheet entries are those have got a cost to them also. So they're premium webhooks, as well as the these API calls, these webhooks. So the thing I realized here was, while Go High Level has got a higher price on a couple of premium activities, premium whatever they are, executions, Make, Zapier, and I was looking at a couple of Zapier plans here. They've got charges that are done on a per step in the flow. So when you look at a workflow, the number of each step has got a different, or has got a charge to it, and that charge is basically these 750,000 executions that they call them, or tasks. Zapier calls them tasks. I don't remember what Make calls them, but working through these numbers to load these 40,000 leads and process them back, the 1,200 and the process back the 1,200 and then the 2,400 actually get to the point where they're going to be looking at outcomes and sorting those out and then sticking the leads into a spreadsheet. That's the model that we're using, is 40, 12, 2,400, and really kind of working through this in Go High Level. So the Go High Level price for this whole thing is $715. I might be high. We're getting fairly close. Make is a lot less expensive than Zapier, either one of the Zapier plans, and Make has a cost. I think it's an annual plan, $413 for 750,000 number of operations or tasks. Comes out to be whatever that is, 5 1/100ths of a cent almost 6/100 per. So then I kind of add them all up, different stages here. And again, it's kind of messy, but I think it's pretty close. So Make comes out to be about $725 for that same operation. Now, the thing about Make is, well, let me move on here to Zapier, because Make and Zapier have the same problem. So Zapier has a 750,000 execution or task plan. It's an annual one. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm picking 750,000 is because it's going to take slightly more than that, I think, to actually execute 40,000 leads. And because it's every step, or almost every step in the flow chart. The trigger for Zapier doesn't charge for the trigger. I think Make does charge for the trigger, but then doesn't charge for some other things. And I think some stuff that I've seen, these two, based on the details of how they charge for the executions, kind of a wash. It's just they picked different things, different routes to. Some of the steps are charged, some are not. This rate right here. Some of them are charged one execution. And Make has a different list than Zapier, and there could be some different conditions on how they're charged. I think I'm pretty close. I spent quite a bit of time messing with this. Anyhow, here's the upshot. There's a Zapier 750,000 annual plan. There's a Zapier 2 million execution annual plan. The reason I picked these is, number one, the 750 is about the bare minimum necessary to be able to execute this 40,000 leads. And so I had a client load 30,000 leads, more than 30,000. So I rounded up to 40 just to see what would it take and how, what is this going to do, loading that many leads, et cetera, then executing on them. So Zapier has a 2 million execution plan, and the price drops quite a little bit. This is 0.2%, almost 0.3. You probably call that 0.3%. This is about 0.2%, by the same rounding mechanism that I'm using there. So yeah, it's saving 0.1% on these two things. Or if you want to look at percentages, it's like 30%. Lower. This one's 30% lower than this one. So the two Zapier plans, it was, the reason I chose the bigger one is because you reduce it. You're reducing the cost per execution. But even with the biggest, or this big plan, this 2 million execution plan, the task plan, it still came out $1,700 to load those leads into the system. And for the Zapier 750,000 execution plan was $2,400. So quite a little bit more with that higher price per execution. So let's see here. What else can I say about that? So the lowest was Go High Level. Make was the next, is only $10 less or more. And, probably within my margin of error, I would call those two, they're the same. And then the 750,000 execution plan, Zapier, $2,400 and $1,700 for the 2 million execution plan to run that. Now, one of the things is, these 2 million executions, you've purchased them. So if we're going to go run 40,000 of these things or what have you, and this is a month, 2 million a month, you will, 2 million a month paid annually. That's what I mean by annual plan. So 2 million executions per month. Did I get that right? Yeah. And you're paying it annually. So you're going to pay them, 12 times 3,400 basically. Anyhow, two things. Number one, you're having to buy these in chunks that are pretty darn big. So if you're not using that many, you're overpaying. If you exceed this, Zapier charges you at 1.3 times this rate. So they're going to add 30% onto that rate if you exceed this number. And you can only go you can only pay that extra rate for up to 3 times this execution count. So I should say only. Then they cut you off. They won't let you go anymore. You cannot execute any more than that. So yeah, the rate increases quite a little bit if you exceed this. So what's hard here is buying this package where you're getting $750,000. When you run over the end, you're going to pay quite a bit more. You're going to pay 30% more. The difference between these two plans here, for instance, and then so if you use less than this, so you'd obviously try to avoid that because you're going to have a 30% deficit. Now, if you execute less than this, you're just leaving money on the table. So your cost per execution actually increases because you didn't execute that many times. So it's very hard to actually get this number right here. It's going to be very difficult to get that number or this number because you'd have to hit that exactly right on the money. If you execute less than that, this number goes up. Less than this, number goes up. Your cost per execution, and if you go over it, the number goes up. So to hit this number is, I would almost say we are literally talking about, I hate to say fantasy land, but I don't know how you'd hit this number. I'm not sure how. If I understand how these work correctly, which I think I got that down. I didn't see anything on Make. I didn't research Make nearly as much. I just wanted to throw Make in here as an, I didn't just want to throw it in, but it's an option. And I see, it's actually getting really close to the go high level execution price. So, could you just use any of these things? And it depends on what you're doing. The one big thing that Go High Level has that these three don't, that these other options here don't have, is the CRM. So with the CRM, I'm able to do some things that are related to the contact better than I can over here on these guys. Now, I've not used these platforms, so I don't know exactly how they work, but my understanding is they do not have a CRM associated to them or in them, and where Go High Level does. So even if you got this pricing lower than this, you're still lacking. You still need a CRM or something to treat that contact as a contact and update the information with respect to that, and be able to go through the I'm copying in transcripts into the contact. I'm putting in outcomes, the data was created, lots of information. Plus, we're tracking other things that if you were using just these platforms, you would have to push those into Air, like their address, their street address, their city, their state, their zip code, those kinds of things. So anyhow, just looking at some pricing models and execution here. So with respect to Go High Level, Make, and Zapier, a couple of Zapier plans. So I've also looked at this and I said, okay, well, $750, that's a lot to load 40,000 leads. Depends on what you're comparing it against, but it would be really nice to be able to load those things for free with a call instead of having to execute this. That's why I went and looked at these other plans. How are they priced? What is their actual cost, and what would I have to do if I were to try to reduce this? And even there's another one called Active Pieces, and Active Pieces, I think I've got it up here. Yeah, here's Active Pieces, their pricing, and this is just without a subscription. They are 1 cent for every 10 tasks, so they're 1/10 of a cent per task. And I don't know the rules and regs of how they actually execute tasks, but it's if I just assume that it's similar to how Zapier does, possibly Make, because again, I don't know Make that well, but I did dive into Zapier's plan. Maybe I'll put that link in the description down below. The deep dive on how Zapier costs out different execution steps and what they actually charge against that 750,000 executions. But honestly, when I look at this and I look at this sort of an execution model or this purchasing model where you're buying this package and your overage is charged at a higher rate, and if you obviously don't hit 750,000, then you're paying a higher rate. It's very hard to actually say that, yeah, this is my execution cost. So I think you're probably going to, people are going to be worried about going over, fixing their cost, and saying, okay, well, I execute somewhere in the 700,000 range, so I'll buy this package, for instance. So their cost per execution is much higher than this. It'd be, well, not much, but it would be higher, just based on the fact that you left 50,000 executions on the table. So whatever that costs is worth to you. Anyhow, just a bit on how those things are charged and what I've perceived as kind of the rates in there, and how those stack up against a use case that I'm modeling with ratios from actual data, actual calls.